Thank you, friends. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you all took a few moments to mark Yom HaShoah. It is the day of observance, a somber one. But don't forget, we also mark and observe the original day of genocide. But it's different. It's celebratory. I mentioned that people have been racially killing since the 4th century, but don't forget, humanity's oldest recorded racial extinction is actually from the book of Esther. And Purim, my friends, was a genocide that was stopped, and so we do celebrate. But too many others weren't. We can and must stop it from happening again. I'd like to welcome you all, and I'd like to thank you for coming by. I know some of you, really enjoy my audio presentations, and some of you really enjoy the video presentations. And I'm going to continue doing both. And one of the benefits, of course, of the video is it gives me a chance to talk a little longer, but it gives me a chance to feel like I'm seeing you all, and I love seeing you all. And so I hope you share them with your friends, and I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you'll feel free to drop me a line if there's anything in particular that you would like to see addressed or talked about. As Dorothy said, there's no place like home. I am back, and friends, it's true, there's no place like home, but you carry home with you in your heart. And during those few days that I was away, I've never felt more at home. As you know, I just returned from performing a wedding in Savannah, and it was an honor and a privilege to be officiating in one of, if not, the oldest synagogue in America, and one of the finest, I think, in the Western world. And I made many new friends while there, some local, like Kathy and Phil, and some from the West Coast, and some from New York, like my new friend Marty, who came up to me at the end of the service to talk about it. And friends, what was the most pleasing is that these were people from across the wide spectrum of practicing Judaism, who were each touched and moved, each in their own way, partly by the differences from what they'd seen before. And so my goal of breaking down the barriers of interreligious intolerance also worked to help bridge the differences between our own dogmatic sects. People were asking me whether it was Reconstruction, Reform, Conservative, Conservadox. It was none of these. Don't label yourselves. Be open, breathe in. Spirit cannot be contained. It resonated with one kind man so much that he came up to me and told me that he told his wife he had a new service to listen to on Friday nights. And friends, I'm honored, but don't change the services or the places that work for you. Just supplement them. Expand. Let yourself develop. One pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small. And the ones that Mother gives you don't do anything at all. This week's Parsha, Emor, say. We all know the dog days of summer, and with the winter we've had in the Northeast, perhaps we're even longing for them now, and perhaps that winter just isn't going away. I think of Van Morrison's These Are the Days. These are the days of the endless summer. These are the days. The time is now. There is no past. There's only future. There's only here. There's only now. Or the great Love and Spoonful. Cool town evening in the city, dressing so fine and looking so pretty. We are in what many consider the dog days of Torah. Those sultry, hot, tiring, boring rules. We have a priestly set of rules in our priestly book, covering things like the holiness of priests, the festival of booths, the Day of Atonement. But we were also just told that we are holy because God is holy. Don't be fooled. Friends, the entire Parsha is concerned with holiness. As a word, it is repeated again and again. We are still in that section we talked of last time, the Holiness Code. What this is telling us is there are degrees of holiness. We the people are all holy, but some are holier. Priests, for example. The priest, as in most cultures, is set apart. He's different, and he's treated differently. And there's a myriad of special rules for him. But since the destruction of the Second Temple, many of these have fallen away, as there is no high priest anymore. Judaism began as a priestly religion, but has become a rabbinical one, and they are not the same. I always worry when I read that all are equal, but some are more equal than others. There is an Orwellian Animal Farm essence to it. Friends, the priestly role is what changes the degree. We will see this in Numbers during the Korah rebellion, but their level of care is equal to their level of holiness. What they take truly is equal to what they make. They are held to a higher standard, and they fall harder for the same transgression as someone not held to the same standard. There is a problem when we allow this to be lopsided, to allow some to be elevated, but not held to an elevated standard. Look around today. It seems that those we elevate get away with a much lower standard. What does that teach us? What kind of an example is that setting for people? In biblical times it was different. Perhaps that is the standard that we need to get back to. Look at Aaron's sons. Look at Phinehas and the spear in the tent of meeting. And we are shown that back then, identification was based on patrilineal descent, something that took until 1983 before the Reform movement accepted, and something which the conservative and Orthodox branches still outright reject. It was biblically accepted, so why shouldn't it still be? We also have a retelling of the infamous lex talionis, the law of retaliation, and we'll talk about those at another time. This is a parsha that's filled with what appear to be discriminatory statements. Not just discriminatory, but downright hurtful. Descriptions of the types of injuries or impurities to individuals which disqualify them from priestly service. But don't look at it that way, friends. Understand it to be another case that relates to ethical versus the ritual realm. We have lost our sense of zones of holiness. The Torah contains awe for the sacred, and it inspires great care regarding these zones. Who enters? What happens? What the boundaries are. On the ethical level, care for the handicapped was ordained. On the ritual level, physical purity and perfection supersede any other considerations. We see this even when the discussion turns to that of priestly food, not to be eaten by the impure, and for a newly freed nation of slaves to say that when a priest buys a person as a possession, that person can eat of that food. Well, so much for no slavery. The freedom of the egoless bread holiday is freedom from the fears and haunts of your life that enslave you. And friends, this parsha is filled with fascinating rules. When talking about a sacrifice of an ox or sheep, we are told in Leviticus 22:28, you shall not slaughter a mother and its child on the same day. Friends, this is like the prohibition of boiling a kid in its mother's milk, which gave rise to the kashrut rule of not mixing milk with meat. That was not biblically prohibited. It was rabbinically prohibited, based on an interpretation of the kid and its mother's milk. This rule of a mother and its child is a moral dilemma. We acknowledge that we eat meat, but these are living creatures, and there is a sanctity to life. We knew our food better then. It's much more difficult eating food you know. So to wipe out a mother and child in one day is morally unacceptable. This is a book filled with rules that takes you to the ethical and moral realms. It's not just dry, boring law. And it's done by a God who makes you holy, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be a God to you. Powerful statement. A contract. I did this. You do that. From the Decalogue on, the Torah is full of, I am God who brought you out of Egypt. Not I am God who created the world or the universe or anything else for that matter. They are different statements, one verifiable and one not. One demands payment, one does not. There is a shift in God now, but we project the God of creation on the God of the Exodus because of monotheism. And then we are given a schedule of holy time. These are my appointed times. But the word used is mo'adim, which means fixed times for the festivals. And the festivals are to be for eternity. And all of these holy fixed times with their festivals have a very interesting aspect to them. They all call for a Shabbat. It shall be a Shabbat to you. And that comes from the Hebrew for the number 7, but its literal meaning is cessation. These festivals call for a certain cessation of work. We don't necessarily think of Shabbat as a cessation. We think of it instead as a ritual day of its own type, a weekly day of rest. But it is a call for you specifically to cease what you're doing and devote some sacred time in your sacred space. We are all connected, my friends, all together now. The sacred time is when you reconnect to the whole, when you can recharge or renew. And that's a fascinating concept which we also have lost sight of. And we're pointed to it in this parsha. In Leviticus 24:3, by a reference to the eternal flame. You see, it's not really eternal. It was to burn through the night. We take the ner tamid to be an eternal flame, and we've talked about it. You see it in every temple, and it is the metaphor for the ardor which burns in our hearts. It is poetic, and it is inspiring. But tamid, perpetually, actually implies it is to be constantly renewed and not to burn incessantly. And don't we appreciate the renewal of things? Sometimes just a little more. Think of Hanukkah. It was the renewal of the lamp that we actually celebrate. Friends, renew your spirits. The Torah is an organic, ever-changing book, and you should take an ever-changing approach. And I welcome your input on topics that you'd like to see addressed, either on their own or as part of a Parsha presentation. I encourage you to share these shows at your table or with your friends. I hope they foster discussions among you to allow you to stretch, to grow, to expand how you can look at this fantastic living book we've been given. And if you want somebody acknowledged, let me know so we can all acknowledge them together. We come together to share, to study, to explore. It's something that we do as a group, and we do it as individuals. We are all agents of light, my friend, and light can never be snuffed out. Before I go, I have to thank a group of people who took a chance on me. Thank you. And as Abba's saying, gonna do my very best, and it ain't no lie if you put me to the test. If you let me try, take a chance on me. And I also want to wish a wonderful happy birthday to Brina. A wonderful girl, a sweet angel, if ever I met one. And I want to say goodbye to Ron, a big man with a big heart. Alwa atqua walla. Hail and farewell. Use these times we get together, friends, your times of sacred time in your sacred space, to send energy to those who are ill and in need of healing, like Bob, who we hope gets stronger every day, or those you have lost, like Ron. Friends, loved ones. And friends, tell the people in your life that they are important and that you're glad they're there. Don't assume that they know. And I'd like to thank you all for joining me week after week. It really is wonderful. It's such a thrill for me. You're such a lovely audience. I'd love to take you home with me. I'd love to take you home. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining me, friends, and I hope you'll join me next time. Have a great day.